Here.
Ronnie.
Here.
Van.
Here.
Robert Pond. Not here yet. Rob Smith. Here. All right. Approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the regular meeting minutes from December 16th, 2020?
Yep.
Do we have a motion to approve? Go ahead.
There needs to be one slight amendment. So section 2, which is the approval of the previous meeting minutes for November, says it was motioned by Robeson, second by Ray, and then it lists everyone but me. I did vote to approve those, so I don't know if you want to amend. I think it was just an error that I was left off of that vote.
I can go back and add that change. Sorry about that.
It's 2A if you need to correct it.
Do we need a motion to amend?
Motion to amend to include a revision to 2A.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, the first motioner has to accept that.
Who made the first motion?
To approve the minutes?
Yes.
Whoever made the first motion has to approve the amendment of my motion to their motion. And then we'll all be on a wave.
I don't think we had a motion. I think it was just me talking.
I think you're right. Well, then motion to approve the minutes with the amendment made by Van Pappas as submitted.
Do we have a second? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, everybody. Excellent. Now, do we need a motion to approve the minutes?
No, that was it.
You just did.
That was it. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the executive session minutes? And do we have a motion?
Yep, motion to approve the executive session minutes as submitted.
Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
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 Who was the second?
I think I was, Van.
Okay.
Laura, wait a minute. You pulled up the November 24th minutes.
No, that was the minutes from December. Did approve in November.
Look, so these are the minutes. So this is the December meeting minutes. They're referencing November.
Okay.
It should be right. This is the packet on the right-hand side, and I've removed the executive session from the public side over here, just so you're aware. But y'all have the executive session minutes in your packets.
Okay. We still need to vote on that?
I think he took the vote.
Okay.
Yeah. We're good. But who's second? That was Van?
Yes.
The chair's report. So a few things. One, I've got a follow-up meeting with the Chamblee Doraville CID in April. We were supposed to get together at the beginning of this month just to kind of catch up and see what's going on. Really wasn't a whole lot to talk about, so we pushed it out basically another quarter. So in April, I'll be having just some additional discussions about what they're doing and what we're doing. I also sent around an email to the group just kind of talking high level about multifamily in Chamblee, and just wanted to touch on some of those points. And I'll probably make this a regular occurrence, picking different food groups of development going on. So office, retail, we don't really have hospitality or much of it. But just high level, looking back at the quarter, these stats come from CoStar. My interpretation of these stats are my own. They don't represent the DDA or anything like that. So there's your legal caveat. But basically we've added 709 units in our defined Chamblee downtown area over the last, call it, 4 years. And those projects are the highly visible projects that we all see. It's Olmsted, now called the Oliver. It's the Park View project in Park View Phase 2, which is now called Keswick, and SLX and Ativa. Ativa is the 55 and up project that's being built by Cortland across from SLX. And so we've really added a lot of supply, a lot of inventory. And I think just anecdotally, if you talk to folks in the neighborhoods in Chamblee, in the city, they look at things and they say, oh my goodness, look at all this multifamily. How can you even be adding more multifamily? There's just so much of it that's been built. Well, if you look at the most recent quarter in the stats, everything with the exception of SLX, which came out beginning of 2020, is pretty much stabilized, which is 95+% occupied.
Ativa's not in there, right?
What's that?
Ativa's not included in that, is it? Because they're not.
I am including that in there, yeah. It's taking this quarter.
Okay.
2021. But just, high level looking at the stats, multifamily has been the soup du jour. It's going to continue to be that. It's one of the few asset classes that is not feeling the full brunt of COVID. Investors are looking to place their money in multifamily is kind of it, with the exception of industrial is on fire right now, but multifamily really is kind of the active asset class that we have in Chamblee. So long story short, we're in a good spot. The projects are leasing up despite, everything, or in spite of everything that's been going on with COVID. And I would expect to see more multifamily projects popping up, especially in our area. But it's all generally positive news with a little softening of rents over the last quarter, but that's kind of it. I don't know if anyone had any questions or wants us to look into anything or anything like that.
No, I appreciate that you put this out, because I think the occupancy rate numbers are really important and are a very good, I don't want to say arguing point, but they are a good arguing point for people that are against more and more and more multifamily, especially on Peachtree Boulevard. It just makes sense. And of course, we do have a few more coming online, but it makes a lot of sense. It's a younger generation by 2 or 3 times for me, but it's a younger generation that are looking for this kind of living accommodations, and we're on MARTA. So despite this blip right now, it's an important thing. So,
and I think it also represents that there really is the demand out there. When you look at the projections for the amount that Atlanta is going to grow, either we're going to grow outwards even more, or we're going to have to get much more dense inside the perimeter. And of the options, getting more dense inside the perimeter in transit friendly locations is exactly what we ought to be doing.
Well, I think both is going to happen. I don't think that what we're doing is going to stop the outward growth, but it's a good step. And it's like I said, it's the 30-somethings that are going to occupy these buildings, and that's just the way it is. We don't have control of that.
I think it's really important to note, and again, this is all obvious stuff, or it might seem obvious. Our proximity to Buckhead, Midtown, Central Perimeter, Hill, we are centrally located at all of these job centers. And, as folks are getting priced out of some of these more expensive areas like Buckhead, like Midtown, and even Central Perimeter, we become, I don't want to call it the low cost option, but we have all of the amenities for, $100, $150, $200 discount on, a monthly rent rate. So Again, these are all just high-level stats that I'm taking from CoStar, so please do all of your own research. But I thought that was pretty interesting, and certainly we're moving in the right direction. Chamblee certainly is getting behind the right types of development.
I think that another thing to note is that, all of the arguments that have been on next door about the soon to come out of the ground development, hopefully on Sexton Woods and Peachtree Boulevard, there are several people that are going so far as to make the comment, we want walkability. Well, this is how you get it.
Yeah, and one last point that I'll add is the proposed projects that are in the pipeline right now are not along Peachtree Boulevard, with the exception of that Sexton Woods project. It's all moving more towards kind of our central downtown area, and it's just going to continue to be a catalyst for the downtown area as a whole, in my personal opinion.
I think you're absolutely
Enough of my hot air. Do you guys have any questions or comments or things that you might want to have addressed in the future with these types of reports or emails? Moving on. Financial report.
Brian, you're muted.
Okay, I'll start again. I'm going to apologize for not having had a lot of time to look at these, but you can see the total balance of our accounts is $555,000, including the assets, $583,000. Scroll down a little bit. I think, Van, you had pointed out that there may be some question about our loan. Right now it's 12.194.
Not the loan, the value of the property, the asset side, the line that says investment held for resale.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if what we're looking at is the same document we were emailed, but the numbers just didn't quite match up. But I couldn't really tell if there was additional stuff because the general ledger didn't go through the end of the year.
We can look into that for you.
This is the same that I had emailed you earlier, and I'm happy to ask Steve about that. I can follow up.
Yeah. I mean, it's only a small amount. In fact, I think it's only about $100. So you're kind of like rounding there when you're talking about $12 million, but it just caught my eye. And, whenever I see something like that, I start going, okay, is there any other problems?
It's worth asking. I also would point out that we have not received the administrative payment from SLX. So this does not reflect that amount, which is, how much is that, Laura? Do you have that handy?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can go look and see.
Okay, that's fine. It's not important.
Okay, I'll find that out for you guys.
That's all I have.
As part of the financial report, does it make sense for us to track our current pilot payments, what's been paid, what's owed, that thing?
I think we tracked that in our budget.
Okay.
Catherine and I started a spreadsheet to do that. I don't know if that's been maintained or not.
I don't mind maintaining it if it's an unofficial kind of running tally.
I'm still familiarizing myself with all the different documents, so I'm sure it's in there, and I will take a look and find that and then share that with you, Rob, and whoever else needs to see that. So I'm sure it's in there, and I'm sure she's done a good job of maintaining it. I just haven't quite found my way to it yet. So
no worries, I'm here to help too.
Yeah, it's just something that I think we had talked about getting it added to the budget. so that when we look at budget versus actual, we have it in there, just so everybody knows. And from my standpoint, it was important to know that on a budget, we include that money, but the reality is we don't get the money until the end of the year. And so we can't really anticipate spending it until the following year.
Right.
That's all I have.
Any questions on the financial report? Moving on to the DDA property update. Some of the details that we'll talk about in more detail in the executive session, but just wanted to give everyone a high level update. The Gordon, we sold that to Windsor Stevens a few months ago. It looks like they have gone back to the city and are looking to add a few floors to their original project. I'm getting this information from their Instagram post, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think their project's changing a little bit. It still looked like the same project, just more floors added to it. So I don't have any details on that other than it looks like it might be changing a little bit, and probably for the better. If I had to guess, but tables and chairs, we have some discussions going on with the neighboring property that should be getting wrapped up relatively soon. That being said, we're looking at hopefully a July closing for the property. We resolve a few of those issues first, and then we can kind of march towards a close. But just generally speaking, everything's moving in the right direction. That's should be coming off our books in the next, call it 6 months or so. Chamblee Dunwoody collision, caught up with Darren at Worth today. That's all moving in the right direction. There are just general hangups with COVID and going through the process of putting a development together, and one of those is getting architectural drawings and all that kind of stuff back quickly. So really kind of things that are outside of their control or kind of delaying things, but I say that I'll also say that it's continuing to move in the right direction. There's some lot of language going on with that, and that all seems to be going in the right direction. No real major concerns there. I think we're looking at an April closing for that project, and that's going to be. I'm very excited about that one, and tables and chairs, but that should happen sooner. The Chamblee Dunwoody collision site. Vintage Pizza, no update. We're not actively marketing that. We don't have any immediate plans for that. These other dominoes to fall first before we start basically business planning for that project. And then
can I ask you a question, Rob and Laura? Yes. Where did we leave off with them wanting us to build that wall inside there? Did they finally give up on that? The char griller?
She's talking about Char Grill wanting us.
Yeah, I don't have an update on that. I haven't heard anything. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
I have not heard an update either.
I was just wondering.
We can build them a wall when we rip down the building.
We'll build them a wall when they fix the hole in the driveway.
Yeah, no kidding.
Ground entry.
Chamblee Town Center, we have been trying to schedule the site cleaning the last couple weeks. There's been weather delays, and we should be able to get the folks out on site, if not by the end of this week, early next week, I think is when they're scheduled. So an FYI, I was out at Contrast on Saturday, and it was about as close to not being socially distanced as you can get. I mean, that place was packed, people just enjoying themselves. It was great to see, but they could definitely use some more elbow room over there to expand out. I think it's going to be great to clear the site, whether Contrast ends up using that or not. It's just going to open the area up. It's going to be great for us to, do kind of marketing tours and leasing tours and all that stuff. So that's kind of the next step with Town Center. From a disposition standpoint, there really aren't any updates at this point. COVID in general is really putting a hamper on office leasing at this point. Speaking from personal experience, working with corporate headquarters, talking with their corporate leasing folks, people just are not making leasing decisions right now. I think we are pretty well positioned for anyone that is looking to relocate, just because I do feel like folks will be looking to get out of the central business district area, like the Buckheads, the Midtowns, the central perimeters. People are going to want more control over their office space, and our project does that. But no one's really making any long-term decisions while we are going through this whole vaccination thing. So the team is continuing to market the site. Seven Oaks is continuing to push for leasing and to do leasing tours and all that kind of stuff. But just me speaking as a third party observer, I think it's going to be a while before we get any real office traction. But again, I do think that there are going to be folks that are looking to get out of Buckhead. And just again, anecdotally, you're hearing folks that are having safety concerns being in Buckhead. There are a lot of issues going on with crime in Buckhead. And I really think those folks are going to start to take a look outside of the more traditional markets. So we just have to be patient here. Any questions, comments?
Question, I know it's not our project. Other projects in the downtown area, do we know what the status of them? I know there's that apartment complex behind Southbound. Leslie, have you heard where they're at? Or are they
moving along? Once they pass through their initial pass through city council, they still have to get LDPs. They still have to do an ungodly amount of stuff. So it really looks like nothing's happening, but it actually is, and they're doing that behind the scenes work. So they're good. They submitted, we don't like the artwork that they put on their parking deck, but that's not a big deal. That's a small part of the whole thing. I think that the silos, Red Rose feed silos project is just totally stalled, which makes plenty of sense. I think that, but no, that project's moving along, and they're moving along at the speed that you can expect from them. The other projects, the one on, is it Hardy? I think it's Hardy, not, they're continuing. They still have to do their LDPs and all of that kind of stuff. So, what they do is they come before the city and then before council to find out if we'll even allow them to do what they're talking about doing. But that doesn't mean that they still don't have to do their discovery and, bringing everything into line. And that could take 3, 4, 5 months. They've just now cleared the site that they're putting the car wash on next to the CVS, which is going to be a nice car wash. I mean, all said and done, it's going to be a better way to occupy that space than the oil change place. But again, look, that took 3 months. So that's just the way things are. So far, they've not pulled out.
It's good to hear.
And
Leslie, go ahead.
And the other thing is, the city has gotten the funding to finish the trail from, I guess it's Pierce to the rail, to Third Rail. So that's going to actually be a big deal. We've got the funding to do it, not to do the study, right, Laura?
I believe that's right. I have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Yes.
For construction, not engineering?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should probably add that to the agenda, just a regular rail trail update.
Yeah.
Do we know when, shovel's going to go in the ground to finish the, the segment from Walmart to Pierce?
No. And I don't remember what the holdup is on that. I don't know if it's still MARTA or not. Oh, wait a minute. It might be the Eco Lofts or one of those people.
Without drumming up any bad blood or thing, we can move. Public Art Commission.
Yeah. So just kind of want to give you guys an update and let you know that we have a couple of big projects that we're working on. One, the mural at the Public Safety Building. We're moving forward with getting artists for that, and that'll close the first week of February, and we should be selecting finalists to move forward with proposals at the end of that week. So that's really exciting. We also have a public input session on Tuesday, so next Tuesday on the 2nd, in the evening time, and we'll be having some discussions with some of our community partners like CPACs and We Love You High and a couple of others, including the middle and high school art teachers. So they'll be involving their students, which is a great exercise for them. So we're excited about that. And speaking of the middle and high school teachers and their students, we're working with them on a project for the MARTA fence line as well. So I'm excited about that because it'll give some color to that fence right in front of MARTA down by, the corner of Chamblee Tucker, that area. So
That's great.
that's,
Yeah.
yes.
Is
So,
it only the fence line on the Peachtree side of MARTA
yes.
and not the
it's
fence
the
line on
Peachtree.
the new Peachtree side?
Correct, yes.
And
There are
we're-
a lot of panels down there, so it's going to take a lot of work to do that side. Yeah, so got some really good things going on. Do you have any questions about that?
Nope.
All right.
Next up, old business, downtown planters.
Leslie, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but we did get some examples from Mario Cambardella about the downtown planter project that we had been talking about. And so just wanted to show you what he submitted and see your thoughts on those and see how we can move forward with that.
I like what he has submitted. I think he's gone beyond what we are willing to tackle right now with the number of planters. But it's a breakdown of what do we choose? Do we want them all to be uniform? I think what he's done in front of Southbound is absolutely excellent. What he's done in front of Scavenger Hunt, etc., is excellent. But I don't think that we need to. I'm not sure that we want to tackle the corner of Broad, and even though the planters are movable, I'm not sure we want to tackle the corner of Broad and Peachtree, because I'm going to assume that the Broad Street, that whole is going to be changing relatively soon. But again, like I said, they are movable, so they could be moved to different places. I think that we're going to be better if we choose the square, rectangular looking ones, or the ones with a very squat bottom, because they're less likely to blow over in a high wind. But other than that, his plant selection's great. I wouldn't want to intervene on that. And I think the larger, the better, because they do tend to take care of themselves. And beyond that, I'm good.
I really like the look. I'm excited about it. And I think we ought to do the Peachtree Broad intersection just to show people that things are happening. That's a busy intersection. And to have some planters and some flowers there signals that greater things are coming, especially since they're movable. I mean, we can once you get the construction started, they can be moved somewhere else.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, my 2 cents here, it's, do you dress up the area that's already been dressed up and make that look more complete? Or do you focus on the area, the focus that, the development hasn't quite happened there yet, but you want to try to help accelerate activity and that kind of stuff? I'm not sure if there's a right answer, but I'm probably leaning Monty's way to, focus on some of the underserved parts of the downtown area, especially if they are movable. We can put them in other places once we need to. It's kind of what we're doing on our next contrast, just clearing space for the sake of, kind of showing activity and that things are happening.
Well, and I think the other part of it depends on how much we're willing to spend. I mean, if we're looking at the difference between a dozen and 2 dozen planters, that's going to come into the equation as well.
Right.
So do you have any pricing from him, Laura?
I have not gotten any pricing. Well, that's not true. There's some of that over here. So we probably need to just narrow it down a little bit more and tell them,
Yeah.
we're more interested in these. So they've got the initial prices here.
Can we maybe phase it if we know generally what we like and just say, look, there are 3 spots that we think we want to focus on, and we really want to focus on that person. Maybe we revisit this in 6 months, 12 months, that sort of thing.
I think that's the best way to do it.
Just take it off in bites and chunks.
Mm-hmm. So probably a good idea would be to kind of look at them and decide on it next month. I mean, anybody want to try to make a decision now?
I think I would love to make a decision now. It might be 1 meeting premature. Maybe we break 3 chunks and get that pricing, and make a decision on that next month.
Good idea.
And so we're generally thinking the square rectangular planters, and then whatever he kind of thinks for the actual plants. And really, we just need to narrow it down to the locations.
Yeah.
Do we have a budget in mind for this? I can't quite remember that.
No, we settled on one. We've sort of talked a little bit about money, but we didn't really settle on one. Oh, and by the way, I don't think we should use Corten at all, because apparently Corten will bleed onto the concrete.
That went way over my head, but I will agree with you.
Corten is the rusted steel.
Okay.
We've got trees planned for the corner of American Industrial Way. So I don't know about those 4 pots that he's got in between the benches. I don't think we should choose to do that. I think what he's done in front of Southbound is a great idea. And then further down that whole block, I think that would show a lot of great continuity. Still not quite ready to do anything on the bump out there where the parking spaces are next to the hole in the ground development. He doesn't show anything in front of Himalayas, which kind of, because the sidewalk's all done there and everything, I'd maybe like to see something in that great big dirt spot, because that doesn't belong to Himalayas, that is city. And then, I mean, if you guys want to do in front of the trellis on the corner of Broad and Peachtree, that would be another good place to do it.
Yeah, so I think it's zone 1 and add Himalayas, zone 2, and this is based off of his rendering.
Yeah.
And then zone 4.
I think that's a good start.
Yeah,
I mean,
and let's get
that's
pricing.
So zones 1, 2, and 4.
If you're reluctant to put a planter at Broad and Peachtree, if they just landscape that center part, it looked so good a couple of years ago when it was planted with flowers, and that hasn't been back. That would signal a change as well. So, and would be affordable, much more affordable.
I'll tell you what, I'd be honest with you. I don't think we should touch the fountain area because that doesn't drain. It's wet. It's horrible. But I'm almost thinking that maybe the part in front of the trellis on Peachtree Road and then that stupid rock planter thing. Of course, that could just be in the ground instead of having pots.
I was talking about the road divider on Broad as you come up to Peachtree. It hasn't been planted in a couple of years,
Yeah,
and that would be easy to do.
right. But I think that should go in the ground. I don't want to spend the money on putting in concrete plinths in there just for pots. I think that should.
That's
in the
exactly what I said. It
Okay.
needs to go in the ground.
Right. I think we could probably prevail upon the city to do that. So Ronnie, are you saying that you don't care about whether we put planters, the pots on Peachtree Road right there?
I really don't care. There's a lot going on that corner anyway.
Yeah.
They might look better on the other side of the street. I don't know. But planting, whatever you call that divider,
Yeah.
is going to do the same job at much less cost.
Well, let's get the city to do that. And focus on the store, I don't know what the zones are. I can't get my computer to obey me. Obey me.
Zone 4 is the area of Peachtree right across from the trellis, or basically where the trellis is.
Right.
But you're thinking on the other side of Broad Street, where Rust and Dust is?
You talking to me?
Anybody?
I was talking about the other side of Peachtree,
Okay.
east side.
You mean in front of the chainsaw people and consignment and all that?
Yeah.
Let's go back to it. There really isn't anywhere to put them that we wouldn't have to pour concrete bases for them.
I don't know.
Let's look at zone 1, zone 2. Yeah, and then zone 4, give us an A and B on each side of the street. And we don't have to know, we just understand what it is.
Remember, this is just a start too.
Correct. Questions, comments?
I'm good with what you just said. Do we need to vote on it?
I think so, not yet.
Okay.
Are you good with that follow-up?
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Moving on to SUFA.
Yeah, so we had a discussion with SUFA on proposed sign locations, and we did hold off on putting on council agenda because we wanted to make sure that we had a pilot program outlined before we did that. So SUFA came back and started to do that, and the areas that they are looking at are located here on this page that we're looking at. So you've got one in front of City Hall, one at Peachtree Road and Pierce, one at Peachtree Road and Marta, one at the rail trail entrance, and I think that one's the one kind of down below the Parkview area. And then one at 3580 Chamblee Dunwoody Road, which is by the Walgreens on Peachtree Boulevard. We can kind of go through those slowly so you can see where we're looking. This one here, it'll depend on whether or not we have concrete underneath here, on whether or not this option will work. So we'll have to look into that. I'm not convinced that it is there, so we might have to finagle that a little bit.
Did they consider putting it in front of whoever owns the Gus's and all of that? Did they consider putting it there instead? I mean, because there's a lot of traffic there that kind of goes around the corner as opposed to going further down Peachtree, but this would direct them to go down Peachtree and explore that as well, especially people that are just going to Contrast as opposed to that live in the area and are walking back and forth.
I think they're really leaning on us to give them that direction because I don't even think they got out physically to take a look at the sites. I think it's all on Google Earth. So I think we really need to give them the direction on where we want these.
That may be a good alternative location. And Van, I'd love to hear what you think about that. If this Peachtree Road one where we put it in front of City Hall doesn't work out. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do think, pushing it to that side could be an option if it doesn't work. I do like by the trellis better than further down for a couple reasons. One, because there is seating there, so people, and I have seen occasionally people hang out and sit on those seats. So having that informational sign by that would be nice. The other advantage is by having it close to the stop sign. I know these are for pedestrians, but people stop at that stop sign and sometimes it backs up. And, when I drive and I'm at a stop sign, I look to the left and right. And if I see a cool technology sign, I'd be like, hey, next time I'm down here, I need to check and see what that is out. So I think it would help possibly get people out of their cars if they saw it. But if, like you said, if the concrete is not there and they can't put it there, then pushing it to the other side, the north side of Broad Street is a good option. I'm just not sure there's enough room on that side of the street.
Well, and what you're saying, Van, I'm looking at like the corner of Peachtree Road and Pierce and where they have the arrow pointing to, and I know that these signs can get moved, but that's right there on the corner. That's not a good place. Moving it in, so still be visible for cars, but it can't obstruct the driver's views and things like that. So I think being right there next to the street's a bad idea. Moving it in.
It's not. You got to remember, these are not going to be right up against the street. They are going to be sitting off. And I think that picture, I don't know where they got that picture. That doesn't look like it's.
That's why I'm questioning it. Yeah,
that's why. It was before the construction.
Oh, it is, because all this stuff in here is paved and it's not paved anymore. But
I think they were just trying to give you a general idea of what corner, but it's not going to be up against the street. You can't put it up against the street.
Well, you're absolutely right. Of course, the script says sign is placed at red arrow.
Well.
But no, so I'm just bringing that up, Van, don't worry.
Yeah.
I know
we can definitely ask them to move their little red arrows and possibly get a updated picture.
But I think that this is a good enough presentation to put it before council.
Okay. We also did talk to them about, making sure that things are still ADA compliant as well. So they are aware of that request as well.
Can you scroll down to that one? Stop there at the MARTA one. So this was discussed on, and Rob and I had a conversation with them about whether it made more sense to put it on the MARTA side of Peachtree Road or flipping it over to the Malone side on the other side of that crosswalk. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. Remember, these can be moved in like less than 30 minutes. It's basically 4 bolts and they can pick them up and move them to another location. But do you like it on the MARTA side of the street? So as people are coming and going from MARTA, they can stop and see it?
You know, you've read that we have a scramble at that intersection now, right? Or
Well, this is not that intersection. That's further down. This is at the Malone
oh,
crosswalk.
oh, never mind then. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, one thought process is if it's on the Malone side of the street, the people that are walking up and down Peachtree on that side of the street are going to see it. They're not going to cross over to the MARTA. If you put it on the MARTA side, the only people that are really looking at are people that are coming and going from MARTA. So you might miss out on just the average pedestrian that's walking up and down Peachtree, because I think they're going to.
But we're looking, the average pedestrian walking up and down Peachtree lives here.
I understand
So
that, but this
they're
is for
more-
as
they're
much for
more-
them as for new
You're
people.
more clued in than the people that are getting off MARTA that we're trying to direct to the businesses.
But if the people
That's
that
a
get
good point. That's a very good point.
they have to cross Peachtree to get anywhere anyway, because there's nothing on that side of the road except MARTA, so they have to cross the street to go
There's
wherever they're going.
There's sidewalk.
Well, I know,
Yeah,
but
but what
there's nothing.
Ronnie's saying is when they come out of the MARTA, they're most likely going to use that crosswalk to cross to the other side. I don't know. I go back and forth on this. I say let's leave it on the MARTA side to start with and see what kind of data we get, and then we can always move it if it doesn't look good.
I think it's 50-50. I completely agree with you.
I'm just saying, I think you're going to look the other side. Sure. Who's your target audience?
This one at the rail trail, the picture is kind of wrong. It's what I had envisioned was, right there, there's steps that go down to the rail trail. And I thought the sign would make more sense down at the bottom so that people walking the rail trail can see and get information, as well as people coming down to and up to the rail trail. I don't think this picture is accurately describing where I think it should go.
They had to work with. They need us to take a picture and show them where it is.
Yeah. Field trip.
You're right, Dan. Yeah.
Field trip. I think we should spend some of our travel money on having a people mover drive us around to these spots and decide.
We do our own Mardi Gras parade started.
Yeah. But no, I agree. I understand that. To me, these signs are for people that are not in the know more than people that are in the know. People that
I disagree. I think, because remember, one of the sections can be about upcoming events and this and that. And yeah, I mean, we want to say, because we all here on this call are pretty knowledgeable, but remember, we got how many thousands of people that I don't know that they're really connected. If they are walking around and they see the sign, they're like, oh, look, there's an event coming up. Or, look, there's an advertisement for, this business and they're offering 2-for-1 shots. Let me go over there because I saw the advertisement, or whatever it is. I think it's for both.
yeah, it is for both, but some of the places that they're located are almost you have to make a choice. So that's all I would like to go and just take a look at each one of these sites and make a decision based on that.
Well, I can go take some pictures and give them to them. But
I'll take a walk.
It sounds like you and Van are the ones who have the strong opinions. Why don't you go out together?
We'll mask up and go walk in the city.
Remember years ago, well, you may not, but years and years ago, we used to have signs on Peachtree Boulevard when it was Peachtree Industrial that said Chamblee Antique Road this way, and that kind of stuff, and that directed people in cars. Now we are talking about directing pedestrians and also, of course, being attracting people that are curious that are driving by in their cars to take a closer look. So I completely understand that. But I think that anywhere that we can meet both our citizens and our tourists, if you will, needs in the same site is going to be the best choice. That's all.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And again, remember, you know, they move very easily,
Yeah.
and all we have to do is tell them the data that we're getting is not good here. Let's put it somewhere else. So.
Yeah. That's, of course, yeah, that's easy. And this is a pilot program and there will be more. But I think it's very cool.
Do we have any kind of thought or idea of when our events will happen again, like Taste of Chamblee, Summer Concert Series?
Or we're having a virtual, what are we doing with the Taste of Chamblee this year?
So we starting with the concert series, we're not having the concert series this year, which is really unfortunate, but we don't have it in the budget for the year. And then Taste of Chamblee, I think we're still hoping to go back to the traditional Taste of Chamblee, maybe a little bit different to accommodate for COVID, but I think we're still too far out to be able to know exactly what that looks like. So the two big events that we have budgeted for this year are going to be Holiday Hoopla and Taste of Chamblee. And, you know, this past year when we did Taste of Chamblee, it was very much like a Chamblee Eats kind of edition, where we did a lot of promotional, you know, pieces and worked with Atlanta Eats for our restaurants in the area. So we're hoping that we'll be able to do a little bit more interactive by the time Taste of Chamblee comes around. But
And that's October?
Yes.
So I think our goal needs to be to have these things, these planners, SUFA. If we're going to do something, I think we need to have this done well before, you know, our next big event. If that's October, we need to aim to have these things done before October.
I think we could probably get these planters done in the spring. And then, yeah, the super signs can go, we can hopefully shoot for the summertime for that.
Yeah. I'd love
Sounds
for it
good.
to be both a, words are escaping me. I want it to be like our coming out party.
Right.
We're going to blossom.
Coming out of the woods, right?
Exactly. The COVID woods.
Yeah, it's COVID swamp.
Next on the agenda, is everyone good with SUFA?
Yeah.
I'm seeing the side grant program, but then I think the agenda is the Peachtree.
Yes. Sorry. The next part of your packet is the facade grant, but we need to talk about the Peachtree Station letter of credit. So I think I saw Dan on there. Dan, do you want to try to tackle this one?
Talking about the letter of credit issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay. So this goes back to really the first transaction the DDA did. We had an initial developer come in. We were very conservative and prudent. Wanted to make sure that in addition to having all of the contractual protections, that there was some actual liquidity in the event of a claim. So, for example, you know, if there's a liability claim and it's tendered to insurance, and there's a defense need, would the actual cash be there in the hands of the developer to pay the DDA's expenses until they kick in? We've institutionalized that in our MOUs. And of course, nobody likes it because it either ties up cash or it ties up a letter of credit, which has to be secured as between the developer and the bank. The particular letter of credit that we're talking about now is the one tied to the Peachtree Crossing or Peachtree Station transaction. There is a provision in that lease, as there is in, I think, all of these, having to do what we call a minimum reserve, and that minimum reserve is $100,000 worth of liquidity, which can be cash held by an escrow agent, or it can be a letter of credit. In refreshing myself on this earlier today, I was reminded that I'd put in there an escalator. So if there's an inflation, then the amount of the reserve goes up. At the time of the sale of the project, the deal was struck between the seller and the buyer that the seller would be permitted to satisfy the minimum reserve requirements. And this has entirely to do with the deal between the buyer and the seller. So we have received a request, in fact, a request and multiple follow-up emails from the seller saying, can we do something about the letter of credit? Can we waive that requirement? Do we really need it? And the short answer to that is that it's a contractual requirement in the lease right now that it be provided. If for some reason the seller doesn't provide it, then the buyer has to, and that would cause some disagreement between the two of them. But the DDA is able, if we choose to do that, to agree to give up that minimum reserve, to give up that letter of credit protection that we have. This is a little bit unusual. It's having a minimum reserve is not normally found in DDA deals, but we had a reason for it initially, and we've carried it forward. So what I can tell you is that request is in front of the DDA. We have no obligation at all to grant the request, but we can if we want to.
So this is SJ Collins requesting us to basically relieve them of this letter of credit issue.
Yes.
These are the folks that made 30-odd something million dollars on the dealer, or right?
I've been careful not to point that out, but yes, these are the ones.
And so is there any risk here of us, if we relieve them of this obligation, $100,000, it's a lot of money, but it's also not a lot of money. Is there a risk here to us letting them let this lapse or go away?
You know, there's always a risk. We live in a world of risk, but in practical terms, given that this is one of our better performing projects, it's making money, it's got a brand name anchor. I would say that it is probably if I put it this way, it's certainly the least risky. Not to say that any of the others are, but this kind of stands out as one that I would be least worried about releasing that. We had a particular reason to institute the policy. Since then, it's not been based on any particular balance sheet review with any particular developer. It's just been something that we've done. I have to tell you that in the abstract, we're better off with it than without it. But without it, we're not any worse off than any other DDA is.
Remind me why we did that with SJ Collins in the first place.
Leslie, it wasn't SJ Collins. We didn't pick them out. It was just a safeguard that has been built into our deals. And so they were not treated any differently than anybody else. You know, we've been requiring it, so we required it of them.
Was that one of our deals?
Was which one? Yes, one. Originally, this project.
But what would be a for instance where we would draw on that letter of credit?
No, let's say there's some catastrophic disaster. A lot of people get hurt. Everybody gets sued. We tender the defense to the owner of the project, and for some reason they don't provide it. Then we'd have the ability to hire our own defense, to pay our own costs, resorting to that money to do that. We have another project that's acquired some liens. And if you have a situation where, I mean, a lien is a claim against property. It's not a personal liability type thing. But if we had a hypothetically, if we had a distress situation where bills weren't getting paid and claims were being made and defense costs were needed. I'm not talking about, this project. I'm not necessarily talking about any project, but hypothetically, in a situation where you have a project with liens, then you might want some liquidity to get you to the point where you can seek whatever recourse in court that you might have. So you can distinguish between projects on the basis of things like that. The particular project in front of us, though, as I say, I don't have any particular reason to think that it's any riskier than any other project that any DDA in the state of Georgia has. So there's less reason to say we need the minimum reserve.
So remind me, S.J. Collins is the Oliver.
No, Whole
No.
Foods, Leslie, Whole Foods.
Oh, okay. All right. So, because I keep thinking that S.J. Collins is the, never mind. Okay.
Dan,
Uh,
I have a question. Does this in any way, all right, so I don't know what the current situation is, but I know there was a period of time where the tenants were, bringing suit against the ownership. This in no way, the two are not in any way related, correct? This would not affect if the tenants were bringing suit against them or anything that we're involved with, correct?
I don't know, but my guess is that since we resolved the matter having to do with the fair market value, that I would assume that that litigation has been resolved. But let's say that hypothetically, because remember we're talking about real people and real businesses, and we want to be careful what we say. But hypothetically, if there's a suit against a landlord by a tenant, and we hold legal title and we're brought into that litigation, then we tender that litigation to the landlord, the developer, and say, defend us. And if they don't, we got to defend ourselves.
I think anybody that our name is on any part of their development or whatever, I think we need to maintain that.
I think this is,
Just because.
I think this is a part of the deal that we made. I think that you were aware of it when they went into the deal. I think the fact that he's tired of putting up the money doesn't change the deal at all.
Mm-mm.
And that's only, that money is only put up until our agreement with the abatement ends. Once our agreement with the abatement ends, then he no longer has to put that up, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So I don't think we need to get rid of it personally.
Nope, I agree.
Tell him we can end the abatement anytime he wants, and he can not, put that money.
But keep in mind, the letter of credit this is S.J. Collins' letter of credit. It's not the current owner and the current beneficiary of the tax abatement.
Yeah,
But that being
no,
said,
it is, because they carved out the abatement from their sales, so it is still,
yes, but
very much S.J. Collins.
it gets a little convoluted. My 2 cents here, $100,000 does not make or break anybody.
No.
So I lean towards what everyone here is saying, and that it's just $100,000. They can continue to keep it posted.
And it's not like it's going into our pockets. Surely they can afford to keep it posted.
That's right.
So I don't feel sorry for them. I'm not shedding a tear.
No, at current low interest rates, it's not like they're going to make that much if they got it sitting in cash anyway, so.
Dan, do we need a motion to deny their request?
We either deny it or ignore it, and they're waiting for a response, so it might be good to give them one. In the response, the matter was considered by the board, and the board took no action to grant it, or we could just say no. We could have a vote and say no.
I would motion to deny the request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's everybody. Moving on, new business, facade grant update.
So I know I just came to you guys about the facade grant in the fall and made some positive changes to open that up. But I also was thinking the other day, you know, we had some folks come to us about the southbound buildings and some of the facade grant, possible facade grant updates over there. And I know that I've noticed that at least, you know, one awning has already been put up. And the way that our grant application is written is that you can't have already done the work before you apply. So I didn't know if it would be something that would open up additional projects, or if you want to consider projects that have already been completed, as long as they are within a certain amount of time and they've met the city obligations. And I just wanted to have that discussion and see if that's something that you wanted to do, or we could do in order to maybe have people who are more interested in the facade grant program.
Could I offer an observation for the board's consideration?
Absolutely.
I did actually read through this, and at one point it mentioned the work done before the staff had reviewed it. It's not clear to me whether it's contemplated that work could be done before the board approved the grant. I guess maybe that's what this is all about. Can you do the work and then apply for reimbursement? And then my answer to that would be no, because there's a constitutional gifts and gratuities issue here. We're supposed to be getting equivalent consideration, equivalent public benefit in exchange for inducing behavior. And if the work's already been done and we just give folks money, I would have some heartburn about defending that.
Well, that might answer our question then, Dan.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm in favor of giving money away, but not when we can't.
I mean, do you think we have a marketing problem of this whole thing, or do you think it's just people are just not paying attention, or what? I mean, is everybody in cloudland or something?
I think there's a couple of things. I do think there's a little bit of, you know, got to let people know about it. But, you know, right now people aren't wanting to spend a ton of money on projects. And, you know, for some of the smaller things, getting elevations and paying for the architectural elevations of things is a little bit of a barrier. So I don't know if there's a way that we can, you know, you don't need necessarily an architectural drawing for an awning, right? So that may be something that we want to consider. What is the baseline for that review?
You know, we might be able to structure this so that we pay for design work.
Or, you know, could we go to the awning companies and say, you know, if you want to get some more work up and down the street, go talk to the property owners. We got this deal.
Feel free to let them know, Brian.
Leslie, I think the issue is old business versus new business. It seems like the newer businesses are trying to take advantage of this, and the older businesses, or really the older landlords, just aren't interested, or really just aren't interested. You know.
Yeah, I think right.
But I think the benefit here is that we are getting folks interested in taking advantage of this, and
well, and I completely agree with you. And I think the older landlords are willing to do any of the work in the first place. They think that their tenants are going to do it. That, you know, and it is what it is. You know, they're not willing to spend 10 cents on doing anything with their facades, even if it means, you know, maybe they would attract a tenant sooner than later.
Right. Well, should we look to add design costs, you know, up to $5,000 and design costs, or anything like that?
I think it'd be worth doing.
We have to have some commitment for them to actually carry the project through and produce something in exchange for our money. Maybe it's a design that somebody else could use.
I wonder if there's a way, I mean, because $5,000 doesn't buy that much. So how much is the city requiring from them to do these elevations and stuff? I mean, is it the city requiring it, or is it both us and the city? And for something as simple as that, it seems like it ought to be able to be streamlined. To spend more money on getting it through permitting than to spend on the actual project doesn't make any sense.
I think it is a requirement of us to have elevations.
Then
So-
maybe lighten the elevation load. It can be hand drawn. It doesn't have to be, I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like that's part of the problem, the cost of doing the elevations. And it would be a shame to spend this money on elevations and then not have the money to, pull it through. And $5,000 for somebody to do an elevation, it's not much to hire a professional.
So Dan, could we add it in here that, elevations costs can be not elevations, but design costs can be part of the total cost expended on the project? And obviously all of this is a reimbursement, like the work has to be done before we reimburse them. So that would mean that they would have their architectural drawings completed by that time.
I can think about it some more if you like, but I would think that if we invest money in their project, then they have to deliver something that promotes revitalization, redevelopment. If they get a set of drawings and decide not to do anything, the drawings aren't worth anything unless they're usable by somebody else. So I'd say that if we approve money for design, then the design has to be usable by somebody else, or they have to commit to us they will follow through and execute on the facade.
I guess I was thinking that that would just be part of the total cost. So by that point, they've committed to doing the project. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. I think that's fine. Design, you can't, unless you're buying something prefabricated, you can't do any construction without design. It's a legitimate cost, I'm saying.
Right.
Right. Is that a chicken and egg though, if you have to have the design before you submit and the cost has been expended?
The cost can be rolled into the grant as long as the design is executed. I don't think that it should be able to be passed on to the next person that wants to lease that space, because who says that they're going to want to do that?
Right. Let me think on this some more, and maybe work with Dan on language to see if that's something that you guys are interested in pursuing. If not, then we can drop it, but it was just something I want to make sure that we're considering.
Okay.
I think generally, as more of these projects, larger projects are coming out of, you're going to see more dollars being invested in these smaller mom and pops. And I think this is going to be less of an issue, less of a hurdle.
Okay.
That's just my guess. But anything
I agree, and
we can do to get.
And I also think that as we get more projects, $5,000 is going to be a minor amount of money.
Right.
So almost not worth the application. So that's something we should consider as well.
Well, we did increase it to be able to have that flexibility. That's part of what we did in the fall. So that helps a little.
Yeah. Okay, I'm willing to let you think on it a lot more, Laura. Because I think it's a multifaceted issue. That's kind of tied to what actually exists in Chamblee as opposed to what exists in Decatur or, somewhere else.
Do we want to move on?
Yep.
Extension of the collision site lease.
Yes, so the folks at the Collision Center have asked for an extension on their lease. Obviously, they would like to have another year lease, but because the site is being sold, we can't offer that to them. But I wanted to see how you felt about giving them any kind of extension on their lease, if that would be possible, or if we just need to say that once your lease is complete, we will not be renewing it. We do need to let them know that soon.
I think we should continue to lease it as long as possible. I mean,
Right.
until the property closes, we have not sold it. And I would think that the property like that, it's not like you're just going to release it if the deal falls through. It'll
Right.
sit vacant for a while.
This is Chamblee Dunwoody Collision, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
A condition to close is that we use our reasonable efforts to get the tenant out. So I disagree with that. I think
When's the closing?
April.
April.
Okay.
so we're talking
aren't
about a
they,
couple
aren't they on
months.
a month-to-month right now?
It's February, it expires, right?
Yes.
But it's a month-to-month.
Been on a month-to-month?
It's not a month to month right now, I don't think. I think we have to offer the month to month.
That's what I would do. So offer them the month-to-month, and
I think we need to get some feedback from our buyer and figure out what the best way to do to approach this. I
Yeah.
also want to use this as an opportunity to talk to the current folks that are leasing the site, because I do think there's a larger opportunity for the city and for the folks that are leasing the site to develop some more land in the downtown area. So I think we need to be delicate with the conversation and make sure we're coming to them as a partner and not just as a landlord.
Say that again?
so I'm confused, Rob. So our buyer has said he wants them out now.
No, he wants to make sure that they're not encumbering the site with a lease. And so the onus is on us to make sure that we don't continue to lease the site past the expiration. So if we're going to grant.
But does he want them out before closing?
No.
So I don't understand why we wouldn't do a month-to-month. Because what you're saying is they're going to be out at the end of February.
I'm not saying we wouldn't do a month to month. I'm saying I want to put the onus onto our buyer and let him tell us what he would like to do with
Okay.
the lease.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that part.
So there's some purchase and sale stuff that we need to think about with this lease. I don't want to make a decision on this right now.
I would say let the buyer tell us what to do, what he would like us to do. Because beyond closing, they're not going to be breaking ground the day of. So I would assume he would want it leased as well.
Here's my problem, and it's not really a problem. We're not going to meet until the end of February. You're telling me this lease is up at the end of February, which means this tenant is going to have to start preparing to move out before our next meeting. So I don't think we can just say, let's wait. Now, I agree with you. We need to talk with the buyer and get their feedback, but can we go ahead and authorize our chairman to have that conversation with our buyer, and then based on what the conversation is, go ahead and act appropriately to give a month-to-month or whatever the buyer wants? Because I'm afraid that if we don't go ahead and move forward and wait until our next meeting, the tenant's going to go ahead and move out. And then if the deal falls through, we're screwed.
I agree with that. And I just want to be clear. It's not what the buyer wants. It's what's but I want to make sure that they have plenty of input and we make the right decision.
I don't think the collision people have anywhere to go, or they would have been gone. That's number one. So I don't think that they really have us over a barrel, but I also don't want to screw them because they've been very good to lease that space so that we're not sitting on a vacant space and paying, whatever we have to be paying on that. So I would like it to be equitable for both. And I also want to consider that the buyer is still going to have downtime before the buildings come down. So I think you need to find out if he's willing to extend it and how far he's willing to extend it, because he might want to go ahead and have it leased up for a whole nother year for all we know.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. That's a valid point, Leslie. That's a very valid point. I'd like to motion that we authorize our chairman to have a conversation with the buyer and make the appropriate action on the lease before our next meeting.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect. And again, the idea here is to just make sure that we're not encumbering something that we shouldn't encumber while we try to sell the property.
Yeah.
And I hear you loud and clear, Leslie. This is a relationship thing that we want to make sure we're not just screwing over the folks that are currently on the site.
Yeah.
And I do think there's some larger discussions to be had about how the DDA can help them.
Yeah.
Film requests.
Yeah, so we've been approached about filming on the Broad Street property. It's just a one-day request, but that did bring up just a general procedural part to this. Is a lot of times these film requests come in and we don't have necessarily the time to wait for the next meeting to make that decision. So I wanted to look to you guys to just figure out how we wanted to proceed with those film requests and either approving or denying their request to film on DDA property.
I would be comfortable authorizing the chair to approve those at his discretion.
Does
So you
anyone
don't have a specific request right now. You're just talking in general when they come in.
Correct. We have a film scout who is actively looking, but he has not come back and said for sure. So this is more just preventative measures to make sure that we're not caught off guard.
I say if we make money, go for it.
I agree. It seems to me like the agreement that the city makes with them, we could mimic that very same agreement.
I would second that.
Does anyone have any issues with us?
No,
Request, doing this?
not at all.
I would-
As a
I would
matter of
think
fact, they need to put us in the credits.
so. Right under the Georgia Peach.
Chair.
Yeah, we need the Chamblee logo underneath the Georgia Peach.
We need the actual center of the universe.
There you go, the actual center of the universe underneath the Georgia Peach.
And we have actors playing us that can be,
Well, I'm sorry. I know George Clooney wants to play me, but he's just too busy.
J-Lo's playing me.
All right, guys. Well, in that case, I'll have Rob negotiate all of these requests on your
Can't
behalf. Okay. So can we get a motion then to have the chair negotiate the terms for film requests?
Motion to authorize the chair to
Brian made it,
negotiate.
I seconded it.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
Ronnie
did?
already-
Okay.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Getting good at this. I can hear everybody's individual voice. I think that's it for new business. Do we have a motion to go to executive session?
Motion to go to executive session pursuant to OCGA 50-14 3B1 for the purposes of discussing or approving a real estate transaction.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. With that, if you are not part of the DDA board, I'll have you exit.
Whatever happened to public comment, by the way?
I was
It's
just
at the end of the meeting.
so I don't know if we want to have that discussion.
David nixed it. It's all David's fault.
We can
Who
add,
asked his honor?
we can add that back if y'all would like. We just haven't historically been doing it since we've been virtual. But if we would like to add it back, we can do maybe like emails before, or we can open up the floor after. It's up to you guys.
I think in a effort of transparency and giving the people, I don't think anyone's going to make any comments, but yeah, I think we should at least have it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it should be at this point, because if you don't, nobody's going to sit around and wait for us to get out of the executive session, make a comment then. So it has to be now or not.
Yeah.
Good point.
I do think with some of these upcoming projects, I think we're going to get some more attention. So
We are.
it looks like we've got the guys